Have you ever felt that trusting God seems to be one of the hardest things that you could ever do? That trusting God seems to be almost not even possible. Or maybe you felt that you've completely stopped trusting in God because you felt He's wronged you. If that's you, if you thought any of those things, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Cost, and today I want to talk about why is trusting God so hard. We want to look at why it's hard because it's something that happens when we're in transitions, when we're surrendering, when we're yielding, and when we're just being dependent on Him for various reasons. Just want to give a disclaimer by now. If you've been watching me for a while, you know my co-host is my 4-year-old and she might run down here. So she's part of the team. The reason why it's so hard is because we love to do things our way and we love to do things on our own. What do I mean by that? Everybody in the Bible who did anything great at some point tried to do it on their own way. We got Adam and Eve. They were told that they were going to not eat from this certain tree, the tree of life, or the tree of good and evil. And then they are told by the serpent, Eve's told by the serpent, that if she does this, she could be like God. She ends up taking matters into her own hand. Her and her husband are now in a fallen state, and they are banned from the garden. We see in Exodus, God tells Moses, don't hit the rock. I want you to speak to the rock. He hits the rock. We see in Number, we see all through the scriptures and Abraham, we see it all through the scriptures. The reason why I believe we aim to do it or to do things on our own way is because there's a part of us that's always going to be rebellious against God. I'm not saying that's right, but in the book of Romans, it talks about the spirit lusteth against the flesh and the flesh against the spirit, so that you cannot do the things that you would. So that fight is always there. So don't feel bad if you feel this fight that I should do what God wants me to do. I should do God's way. And then there's a fight that's saying, don't do it. That's normal. Now, we want to take matters into our own hand. But one of the reasons why it's hard to trust God is because sometimes we have never forgiven God for disappointing us, or for us feeling that He was supposed to do something a different way or a certain way, and it didn't happen that way. With that being said, it could come across that He betrayed me. God betrayed me. God let me down, and He shouldn't have. Have you ever been there before? I've been there tons of times when I failed tests, I failed relationships, I failed finance, I failed so many things, and I thought, if you were here, this wouldn't have happened, and you want me to trust you. So the trusting part comes from sometimes you feeling that He let you down so many times. Often when we feel that way, we start having resentment against God. And we start having this place where we now believe we can be God. We don't say that, but we start acting as if I got it. I'm in control. I can do this. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. We all do that at times. The Bible talks about in Proverbs, a verse that I've studied for years. I'll study it probably until I die because it hits different in different seasons. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Lean not unto your own understanding. Now, for me, that's hard because I'm like, I thought you're giving us wisdom. I thought you're giving us knowledge. I thought you're giving us insight. Yes, but leaning on that before you put God in the equation or before you trust God will soon become idolatry. Jason Upton had this song that talked about, I want to live for the will of God. And in the song, he said, it's plain idolatry if God can't have all of me. God wants your mind. He wants your body. He wants everything. With that being said, he goes on to the next verse. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy path. Be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, and depart from evil. If he wants me to trust in him with all my heart, we have to recognize that the heart is desperately wicked. The Bible talks about our heart being desperately wicked. So when we say something like, oh, they got a good heart, that's not true. The heart is desperately wicked. The heart will want to do evil things. The heart will want to misplace our trust in God. The heart will want us to actually put God in second. And that's a lack of trust. But it's hard if you don't realize that he's not counting on you to have all answers. He's not counting on you to be him. We get in trouble when we try to figure out everything. The Bible tells us, and I struggle with this at times, cast all our cares, all our anxieties, all our concerns upon the Lord because he cares for us. And then at times when we are in different situations, we keep the care. When you keep the care, when you keep the concern, when you keep the anxiety, you put God in second place. And now you have now told God, I don't trust you. And it's hard to get out of that. So I'm going to give you some ways to actually go from not trusting you, God, to I'm going to trust you day by day. It's cool and it sounds heroic when we shout out to people, I trust God, I trust God. It sounds great. But until you've come to a place where he's dried up finances, he's dried up something spiritually, he's dried up some relationships. I told my wife one day, I was like, it can't get worse than this, God. When those things happen, the trust is different because now the level of dependency is different. Bruce Wilkinson wrote a book called The Prayer of Jabez, and he talks about a man, and he's telling his pastor, man, I just feel like life is coming at me and I got to keep going to God. I got to keep asking him for help and all of that. And Bruce Wilkinson told the guy, you are in the best place. You are in a place where you're dependent on God. God wants us to be dependent on him. God welcomes us to be dependent on him. And that is not the world's message. The world's message is self-seeking. The world message is self-made. The world message is, I got it. I don't need no help. I did this. And God's message is, I want you to depend on me. The more you depend on me, the more you rely on me, the more I can start showing you what moves to make, what moves you don't have to make, when to speed up, when to slow down, when to take a break, when to put your foot on the gas pedal. God has the answers because he knows the end. And if he's telling us to trust him, he's telling us, I know what's going to happen more than you think what's going to happen. I know the bill may not have gotten paid. I know you may have gotten evicted. You may have gotten the car repossessed. I'll tell you a story real quick. I was praying one morning. This was a couple years ago. Praying my heart out. I had lost a job and I had just started a new job. And the new job was making half of what I was making at my old job. And I'm praying, God, you're going to give me the money to get my car payment up to date and all of that. And I'm praying and I'm crying and I'm just in the spirit. And I walk outside and the car wasn't there. The car wasn't there. And I thought, oh, maybe my sister moved the car. They parked it down the street. Something like that. I go in the house and I'm like, hey, somebody moved the car. And my mom's like, no. And I cried. I was so mad at God. God, how did you let this happen? I was praying to you. I thought I was trusting in you. That the disappointment came. And I had to realize that my trust in God, this is for somebody, my trust in God didn't mean he needed to make everything right in my eyes. My trust in God was more so he needed something from me or he was doing something that I had no idea about. I was so disappointed. I was so hurt. I was so broken. And I want to encourage you, go to God with your brokenness. Go to God with your tears. Go to God with your frustrations, your headache. Go to God mad and ask God, God, I want to trust you again. I don't understand it all. I don't agree with it all. But I want to trust you again because it's a place where you want me to be at. And it's where you're going to provide for me at. So if this helps you, I want you to do me a favor. Just leave a comment. I want you to get into a place where you trust God again and depend on God again because you cannot do it on your own. And God's waiting for you. Get unstuck, guys. Go be great.